When is a pizza oven not a pizza oven? It's an interesting question. Garden pizza ovens have become all the rage. But what sort of pizza oven should you buy to suit your lifestyle and goals? Are so-called pizza ovens really pizza ovens at all? Or are they just cleverly concocted pizza gadgets? Is what you really need a pizza oven as they would know it in Italy, but nothing like what is being sold under the label of pizza oven in the UK? It's a conundrum indeed, and buying a so-called pizza oven can be a process full of pitfalls. Unfortunately, however, it's not a process that's going to come with lots of red warning triangles that should shout buyer beware. Many homeowners have to learn their lesson the hard way, and if they wish to upgrade to a pucker pizza oven, try to stumble their way past all the hype and somehow find the right answer without going through a painful money-wasting phase en route. For this reason, as nobody should be throwing money down the drain this year in particular, I spoke to a man who can really help you make the right choices, regardless of where you are on the pizza oven owning curve. This is Andrew Manciocchi, the man who first brought pizza ovens to the UK around 20 years ago, but who is now actually moving away from calling his products pizza ovens, given what's occurred in recent years. So if you fancy poodling around a pizza oven in your garden this year, or think that you'd like to take up mobile catering with a pizza oven, or equip your restaurant or pizzeria with a real deal pizza oven, it's well worth listening to what Andrew has got to say. The principles of how to buy well are really all the same. Having listened to his advice, you may find that it's not a pizza oven you need in your life at all, but an authentic wood-fired oven, something far removed from the thing that the neighbours are using over the garden fence. On the other hand, you may not, but at least you'll understand the difference and know that you've bought what's right for you. So let me now introduce you to Andrew Manciocchi, who is the owner of Orchard Ovens, suppliers of Valoriani ovens to the UK. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Jane. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Great. So now we're going to talk about your pizza ovens. Pizza ovens have become really popular, haven't they? But most now are kind of metal box shaped things and they're often portable devices. But yours aren't like that, are they, Andrew? Could you describe what yours typically look like so that listeners can get a feel for those?
Okay, so the ovens that we distribute in the UK are all the traditional dome shape, so they're all based on an internal dome cooking shape. A lot of the modern metallic ones tend to be a little bit more rectangular. Some of them have some attempt at shaping in the metalwork in the roof, but they're mainly designed primarily to only cook pizza. I know that there are many videos around where people will make them do other things, force them to do other things, but they're predominantly designed for pizza only. Our ovens are designed historically as a bread oven, but obviously they became a pizza oven, and they are an oven. They will cook anything. But the key difference is that ours are a perfect dome, which of course is a technical achievement in terms of its dimensions, its height, its diameter, the size of the mouth opening. They're all designed to make sure there's a very good balance of heat around the oven.
Okay, so given the shape and size of oven, I guess that they're not using these little pellets or these sticks that we see for some ovens, are they?
No, I mean obviously that could be used as a fuel, but that particular fuel has been designed for these very, very small ovens, because obviously they wouldn't be able to have the size of small logs and things in them that a wood-fired oven requires, and still have space to cook. So they've kind of been reverse engineered to suit using a different type of fuel and a different type of system that accelerates the flame and the heat. These are the sorts of things that, how do I explain it? Most things in life can be achieved a different way, but that doesn't mean that they're being achieved the best way. And I'm not saying that you can't reinvent the wheel, but there's an argument that says if we've been using this style of oven as the first ever cooking appliance created by man, then perhaps if we haven't changed it in 2,000 years, it's probably never going to change.
Indeed. And in fact, I think people can see one of your Valoriani ovens in the Cheerio advert with James Martin at the moment, can't they? That's your oven
Yes,
sitting in the background,
it
isn't it?
is. I mean, we fitted that oven for James touching 15 years ago now. That's how long he's had it in the garden. And he features it regularly on his Saturday morning kitchen show. So that's very nice of him to do that. Usually, well, he doesn't usually give us a mention by name, but he usually makes sure that the oven's well exposed. Obviously, Jamie Oliver has also been featured heavily using his oven on the television, and many other Italian or, and for that matter, English celebrity chefs have got our ovens stashed away in their gardens or their kitchens somewhere.
Well, that's great, isn't it? And I think probably what they're attracted to, if I'm right, is the artisanship that goes into these ovens. Because, you describe them as artisan built ovens, but, what is it? What does that mean and what's their story?
Well, I suppose if you was to speak to a car expert, they would tell you everything about cars and tell you which are the best cars and which are the worst cars and reasons for that. Um, that doesn't mean that any car can't go from Land's End to John O'Groats. It might just do it in a different way or a different level of comfort or a different speed or whatever. At the end of the day, these top chefs know the history. That's their field. They know everything. I mean, they'll tell you the best cooking knife. They'll tell you the best frying pan to use. And in the same way, they know the best wood-fired oven. Um, Valeriani are historically the best wood-fired oven. I've even spoken to competitor companies that would say that they aspire to be Valeriani. They don't consider themselves to be on that level. Many of our competitors would say that. There are one or two that would, argue that they're kind of getting up that way. But the majority would say that Valeriani is the Rolls Royce brand. That's the aspiration. And obviously, the top people that understand these things, that's what they want to look for.
And, what is it that makes them artisan built?
Well, historically, obviously, it's a lot of science, a lot more science than you would think out of something that was created by caveman in the ground by stacking a bit of mud together and throwing some fire in there. Now, with modern science, getting the dimensions exactly right is very important. And the Valeriani family have been doing that since 1890, creating refractory materials, searching out and finding the best quality of refractory clay. So there's no additives in the materials. It's all natural out of the ground. They've developed their own system for manufacturing the oven floors. So they're the well, last time I knew, which was only 6 months ago, they were the only factory in the world that manufactured ovens and their own floors in the same place. Everybody else buys their floors in from somewhere else, or they use other refractory products that exist on the market. So the bricks that you would put into a space heater, what I don't mean space heater, I mean an overnight storage heater. Those kinds of things are repurposed in ovens, many ovens, to do a job. But Valeriani have a process of 5 different minerals that are brought together in a mold, compressed at 40,000 atmospheres, and then baked for 3 days to create their cooking floor. And they use different mixes to create different types of cooking floor. So if it's a pizza specific oven, they might do a particular mix. If it's a bread specific oven, they'll do another mix. If it's a general oven, they'll do a different mix again.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? And are they very hands-on when it comes to kind of, I don't know, decorating the oven or finishing the oven?
It has to be said that for everything we think of in terms of the Italians and style, Valeriani's off-the-shelf products are probably not the most stylish. They're functional. They are the best. I suppose the best way you describe it is that British Aerospace don't build engines; they buy their engines from Rolls-Royce and other people around the world. So Valeriani build engines, and people like ourselves take those and create beautiful-looking artisan oven aesthetics with those.
Ah, I see. Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. We'll get on to that in a minute then. But, just going back to the artisanship, what does this translate into if you're the homeowner? Does it make a difference to you if you're owning one of these ovens?
It's an interesting question, and if I answered it honestly, yes, but if all you want to do is cook one pizza once every 6 weeks or whatever, then go spend £300 on an uni.
Hmm.
If you actually want to do more with your oven, if it's going to become a lifestyle choice and you're going to use it reasonably regularly, you want to involve the children in the process, you want to maybe do pizzas one week, but maybe another week do a roast chicken or do different things and get value for money out of your product, then, that's where the artisanship, the balance of the cooking chamber, the way that it retains the heat. For example, if I put my oven on in the summer, I might put it on Saturday afternoon and do pizza with my friends, but then Sunday I can roast the chicken maybe without putting any more fire in it. I've even gone as far, once upon a time, going back probably 10 years, remember my wife putting a chili in the oven on the Thursday after we'd had it on the Saturday, thinking it would slow cook. And when we came home in the evening, it had dried out. There was still that much heat within the
Wow,
core of the oven.
that's amazing. So the insulation must be tremendous for that to happen.
The insulation obviously is a key factor. The density of the clay is another factor. The thickness of the clay is a factor. Um, the mix of the clay is a factor. So the mix of commercial ovens and domestic ovens is different because one's denser than the other. And there is, as I repeat, there is a lot of science and a lot of thought goes into it. It's not just bang a metal box together, stick a fire in it. Oh, look, it works.
Mm. And does it also mean that the oven is fit for purpose, I guess? And are there some ovens out there that aren't fit for purpose?
Uh, it's a very difficult question. I'm going to turn into my footballer mode now and give a political answer because I'm not going to start knocking the competition, so to speak.
Mm.
All I would say is that probably the largest percentage of our business over the last 2 to 3 years has been replacing other products that people have bought that don't perform how they thought they would perform. Um, Both with mobile users, commercial users, and domestic users. Um, they've bought products that were maybe sold to them as being something that perhaps didn't turn out to be true. And I suppose the way I would caveat that is that, as I said earlier, James Martin's had his oven 15 years, and he'll
Mhm.
probably have it in another 15 years. I've seen products in a commercial environment that have lasted less than 12 months. I've seen products in a mobile environment that have lasted less than 6 months.
Mm.
And I've seen ovens that people have bought domestically, and the first time they've used it, the child's got third-degree burns from touching the
Oh.
outside. So, it's buyer beware.
Mm. And money down the drain, it sounds like, for a lot of people.
Well, potentially, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
our worst case was a gentleman that spent £10,000 and then had to replace his oven within a fortnight, and that cost him another £10,000.
Oh, that's really distressing, isn't it? Especially when we have this, we don't want this throwaway culture. Everybody's saying we need to sort of be really careful
Yeah,
about how we use things
yeah.
and retain them.
Well, the real shame of it is, and I mean, again, I'm not naming names. It would be wrong for me to do it, but I mean, going back perhaps 3 or 4 years, 5 years ago, one of our competitors was considerably cheaper than us, and then by that I mean perhaps 25% of our price. And one of the issues they ran into was everybody saying, well, "How come yours is cheap and theirs is expensive?" And he was very clever because what he did was he just made his price our price. So suddenly, what you could buy for £100, you were paying £400 for, because then people didn't ask that question anymore. And it's taken another 3 or 4 years for people to understand that the reason for that price difference, truthfully, was just the quality. That product will last you 6, 12 months,
mm.
maybe 2 years at maximum in a garden. I've got products that are 20 years old, still going strong.
And now, we're talking about pizza ovens, but you've sort of intimated that your ovens cook so much more than pizza. And is that the authentic Italian way to kind of use an oven in that way and cook a lot of things?
I think in truth, if you was actually to look at the average Italian family using an oven in the garden, I would suggest that pizza would perhaps be quite a low percentage of what they would use it for. They
Mm.
would use it for meats and fish and bread and vegetables. Pizza would be almost an aside. Obviously, commercially, the wood-fired oven has kind of become the heart of a pizzeria, particularly out of Naples, and then that grew into other areas around Italy and now around the world. In the UK, we've gone from perhaps 3 or 4 wood-fired ovens in the whole of the UK when I started back in 2002 to probably now dare say it's probably in the region of 20,000 wood-fired ovens in the UK. It's a big explosion, but what that means is that instead of the history of the Italian village oven, the one wood-fired oven in the village that everybody shares. So somebody puts a fire in it, one family goes down and cooks sausage, the next family goes down and cooks a joint of meat, that kind of thing. We in the UK have pretty much pigeonholed it as a pizza oven, and we describe it as a pizza oven. We don't describe it as a wood-fired oven. I've always tried to call it a wood-fired oven because that's what it is. It's a wood-fired, but it's an oven. It's not a pizza oven. It can cook fantastic pizza, but it's not meant to be a pizza oven.
And so perhaps now's the time to distinguish your ovens from being pizza ovens to, that much bigger scope of being a wood-fired oven, and trying to get people to maybe trade up from these sort of metal box pizza ovens into something better.
Well, I mean, obviously that's the hope, that people will actually enjoy the cooking or enjoy the experience and actually think, we all rode push bikes as kids, but we all aspired to cars. And once we get a car, we aspire to a better car. So clearly, the baby oven has its place in that it has exponentially brought awareness of wood-fired cooking or pellet cooking, if you want to refer to it as that, across the market, across the UK. And obviously, it's almost inevitable that will evolve into many people thinking, actually, just want to do a little bit better, or just want to do a little bit more. I just want it to look prettier. We're staying in this house, it's our long-term house, let's make a feature. And clearly that's where we see the future of our business.
So where in Italy do your ovens come from, and how did you find them?
They come from a little village called Rogello, just outside of Florence, just south of Florence. And many, many years ago, as I've told this story any number of times, my father was Italian. I wanted a wood-fired oven for the garden. Dad sadly died young, and that kind of whole aspiration project went a bit south for a while. And then I got back to it and couldn't find anybody that could supply me. I tried a few people, nobody would supply, and eventually I found an American lady, Andrea Manciocchi, who sadly died from cancer last year, who suggested that I speak to Valeriani in Italy. And when I spoke to Valeriani in Italy, it turned out they were 1 kilometre from where I'd been taking the family on holiday for the last 10 years. So it was quite clear Dad was trying to tell me something from beyond the grave. So I went to see Massimo Valeriani and we had a nice chat. And I said, look, I'd like to do this exclusively in the UK and see if we can create something. And I think looking back 20 years later, we created more than our own business. We created a market. I would suggest that all the competitors that are out there wouldn't be out there had we not done what we've done.
Yeah, an amazing story, isn't it? So how good a cook do you have to be to use one of these ovens?
Well, I can use one.
I think you're quite a good cook, aren't you?
I have no idea. I mean, the truth is you don't. I mean, if I would suggest that, I'll go as far as to say that every bloke in England thinks he's the best cook with a barbecue. But probably never ever picks up a frying pan or turns the gas on inside the house. And that's how this is. I mean, anybody can use it. It's hot. You put something in there, it comes out hot. Whether it's the best thing you've ever had or the worst thing you've ever had, the fact of the matter is that the thing I hear most from my customers is, I cook the best pizza I've ever had. Now, it might have looked like a map of Ireland. It might have been something that you or I might not want to eat, but to them, it was the best pizza they'd ever had. And that's the experience. I hear people saying, oh, we went away for the weekend, but our kids had their friends around and had a pizza party. Would you let the kids play with the barbecue? Probably not, but the ovens are safer because they're insulated on the outside. Anybody that's old enough and tall enough to stick their hand in it is actually old enough and tall enough to know not to do that. So it's a different experience. It's the same insofar as it's a family thing, and it's an outside in the garden thing, and it's a cooking with a solid fuel thing. but actually it's more than that because everybody gets involved. The wife cooks, the husband cooks, the children cook. Barbecue is usually six blokes stood around the barbecue with a sausage and a beer in their hand, and the women somewhere else with a glass of wine, thinking, "Why has he burnt this again?"
So let's put pizza aside for 1 minute. What would be sort of a starter type dish that you could, begin with when you first get one of these ovens?
Well, I mean, the most sort of, I suppose, I'd say popular, that would make it sound like I do it for a living. The most common thing that I do would be things like stuffed mushrooms, or just mushrooms in white wine and garlic, or crostinis. Sometimes I might do little aubergine parmigianas or something like that. Anything that can be oven baked, panzanella. I can go on forever. You could pretty much give me any meal, and I will find a way to cook it in a wood-fired oven. So, unless it happens to be a salad, then you're probably struggling. That having been said, I did cook a warm salad for some friends once, and it actually ended up on the list for the recipe book. So.
Well, you made me very hungry because I love aubergine parmesan. It's one of my favourites.
Well,
I'm
I
now
cook.
thinking about that. So that's kind of the more simple stuff. If you're really competent, what sort of things could you do
Well,
if
I
you're a
mean,
good chef?
well, I mean, I've got ladies out there that are baking meringues. I've got one lady that's a baker who bakes cakes. We actually had a day last year. It was probably one of the days that somebody was saying, look, there's a cake day coming up on social media. So we spent the day cooking cakes and biscuits. It really is an oven. If you can do it in an oven, you can do it in a wood-fired oven. You just have to find the technique that works. And there are so many different techniques. There are three different types of heat going on in a wood-fired oven. You've got direct heat coming off the flame, which obviously is very hot, very direct. You've got radiated heat coming off the floor and off the dome. And you've got the convected heat that's in the temperature in the air in the oven. It's a matter of finding which of those you want to use, or the balance of those that you want to use, which you might do by moving things further away from the fire or nearer to the mouth of the oven where it's a bit cooler, or putting tinfoil over them to slow them down, or taking tinfoil off to speed them up. There's so many different things. I mean, we had a day last year where we were filming to try and get some corporate videos and things together, and I was doing a T-bone steak. And I thought T-bone steak needs chips with it, so I actually cooked the chips in the oven. And I did it by putting a shallow dish of oil near the mouth of the oven, so it was not so hot it would ignite, but it was hot enough that it would cook the chips.
Right, very clever. But playing devil's advocate here, is it possible to be a really good cook but be unable to use one of these ovens because you can't actually manage the fire element?
I personally don't think so. I mean, I think the thing with the fire element is it's a confidence thing. Yeah, that's like saying to somebody, can you drive an automatic car against a car with a gearbox? The truth is that yes, of course you can. It's a little bit different, and you might need to adjust. But once you've made that adjustment, because once you've lit the fire and you've got some temperature in the oven, any competent, well, not even a competent person, but anybody can use that heat to create something. Learning how to maybe balance the fire over, let's say you're going to start the fire at 5 o'clock and you want to cook all evening through to midnight, then you've got to have a little bit of knowledge just to say, okay, and it needs another log, or it doesn't need another log because I'm just going to use the residual heat. That's a little bit of experience. But I mean, I'll give you an example of one of our most popular commercial clients, who has a chain now of 6 and about to become 8 pubs that do wood-fired pizza. I went there one day, and I was talking to this young girl stood behind the pizza counter, and said, is the pizza chef here? And she said, I am the pizza chef. And I'm okay, fair enough. You don't look old enough to be a pizza chef. Well, I'm 19. I'm doing a bit in between college. Wow, that's good. So how many pizzas can you manage? Well, we're doing 600 pizzas a day here at the moment. She'd had 2 weeks training, and she'd had 2 weeks experience, and she was doing 600 pizzas a day in a venue where it is so good that he's been able to expand to 8 restaurants. So
Mm.
That to me shows how easily it can be picked up. She would have zero experience of cooking with wood before that.
Yeah. And for some people, would it be all about the cooking with the wood? Are there some people who just like doing the wood bit and not
Well, I mean,
necessarily
I'm
the
sure,
cooking bit?
men like to work with fire, don't they?
Mm,
So, I'm sure a lot of people, and I've done it myself, where, I've put the oven on, literally just put the fire in the mouth of the oven and use it as a fireplace just for heat.
mm.
Because, man and fire and all that kind of thing. And you also get some people that develop and evolve to like the concept of the oven, but maybe they've got too used to the convenience of gas on their barbecue, so they start thinking, actually, can I have my oven gas fired, which we can do,
Uh-huh.
so we can simplify it that way for some people.
If we're looking at wood burning ovens, can they be used anywhere in the UK?
Yes, our particular ovens can, because one of the first things we did when we set up 20 years ago was to get them tested by DEFRA. And that was quite an intense process where DEFRA tested them and gave them a license to burn anywhere, including in the centre of Westminster. You can use one of our ovens in the centre of Westminster with no other um, mitigating systems attached to it. I believe we are still the only oven that you can do that with. There are other ovens that now have DEFRA licenses, but they have lots of conditions attached to them, like they have to have expensive filtration systems and things fitted to be able to be used. And even some of those aren't functional within some of the busier areas.
Okay. Right. That's interesting, isn't it? Because I bet a
Well,
lot of people don't realise that.
I'll be honest enough to say that, if you have one in your back garden, how important is the DEFRA license? Maybe not. But if you upset the neighbour and the neighbour decides they want to put in a complaint, then that's where the license comes in, because you can turn to the council and say, this is a DEFRA approved oven. If it's not a DEFRA approved oven, the council can ask you to dismantle it or take it away.
And there are clean air zones as well, aren't there?
There
Where,
are many clean air zones in the
yeah.
UK where the DEFRA thing really, really matters. And in London, you've got the Mayor of London really drilling down and focusing in on the burning of solid fuels and things like that. So
Mm,
it's definitely something to be aware of, that not every oven is strictly legal.
yeah. Okay. So what would you say one of these ovens brings to a person's lifestyle? Does it really sort of bring a zing to life?
Um, how do you answer that question? I can only answer it in this way, Jane. I've been doing this 20 years. And if I lined up every customer I've ever sold an oven to and said to them, look, I want you to give this new person that stood here at my side thinking of buying an oven one piece of advice, what would be the one thing you would say to them? And I know in my heart, because I've heard it so many times, that 80% of those people, at least, the one piece of advice they will give will be, I use it far more than I ever thought I would use it. It will become part of your life, and you will use it far more than you think you're going to use it. Stood there now.
Mm,
Um, so that to me says it just gets under your skin and it becomes part of the fabric of your life. I mean, I'll give you an example. Last week we had a phone call from a gentleman who's had an oven for 12 years. He's moving house, and he's phoned us to order his new oven for his new house before his conveyance has gone through, because he wants it to be there on the day he arrives. That's how important it is to him.
mm, yeah. That's amazing, isn't it? Because,
It,
it's you think of it as being something of a Mediterranean lifestyle. The
yeah,
fact that it's now embedded in sort of English
yeah.
lifestyle is
It's very
incredible.
heartwarming when you hear and see things like that. You have days when you're struggling, thinking, where's the next sale coming through? And then you hear a story like that, and you're like, wow, it's special.
And how long does it actually take to get an oven into your life? What's the kind of lead time that you need
Well,
to
we've
allow?
obviously got our little Fornino ovens that are ready to go out of the box. As long as you order it before 1 p.m., it can be on next day delivery, and it's ready to go. You're just going to need a couple of guys to help you set the stand up and lift it on the stand, and away you go. We then go up to another little bit bigger than the small baby oven. That probably needs 3 or 4 guys realistically to lift it onto its stand, but it can be done, and again, it's ready to go. Or we go right to the other end of the scale where we're doing large projects that can take 6 weeks. We've got a project coming up in February that's a 3-week project, from start to finish. and that's been in the pipeline now since November. So that's taken a lot of planning, a lot of organising, designing exactly what the client wants for their outdoor space and their outdoor kitchen, and coordinating with other services and those services that we don't offer ourselves, which mainly like electricians and plumbers and things like that. And one end of the budget you're kind of around the £2,500–3,000, and at the other end of the budget you could be up £50–60,000.
So you mentioned outdoor kitchens there. Have you done a lot of those, and what sort of locations have you done those in?
We've done outdoor kitchens all over. Well, I can go as far as to say all over Europe. I mean, obviously our territory is predominantly UK, but we have done 2 or 3 projects in France. We've done projects in Latvia. We've done projects in Denmark. So we can go anywhere if you're a UK customer, and you've got a holiday home or a business abroad. We can handle that. But yeah, we've done them all over the UK. Things involving covers and things involving grills at the side of the oven and things involving sinks and whatever you want for your outdoor kitchen.
Even a pub? Can I have a pub and a bar?
Well, if you saw the one in my garden, I've got 3, and I've got 4 now. I've got Peroni, Moretti, Cidra, and dark fruits, all on draft, all at the side of my oven.
Oh wow!
I'm 90% teetotal, so it's all for my friends.
Oh, how generous!
Yeah, I mean, whatever scale you want to go to in terms of, I mean, outdoor bars at the moment are the big thing. We've just done an outdoor bar for somebody that in a garden shed, and they've taken their garden shed and turned it into a bar. They've got their dartboard, and they've got their bar, and they've got their sofa, and I mean, it's it's a popular thing at the moment. But yeah, we do all of that kind of thing.
So if I don't go as far as an outdoor kitchen, however, you can do sort of a bespoke build, can't you?
I mean, quite often we might just pop into a garden for 2 or 3 days and pop the oven up somewhere. And then over time you might add bits to it, either through ourselves or through other people. You might add bits to it. But yeah, if all you want is us to pop along and assemble an oven for you in the style that you want, then that's probably, I say the largest part of our work. It's a large chunk of our work.
And you say the style that I want. What could that be?
Well, if you can imagine it, we can build it.
Okay.
I mean, we designed ones for somebody that looked like the front of a submarine, and obviously most people, well, say most people, our most popular is the brick dome. Probably closely followed by the rendered dome, although I'm not a huge fan of the rendered dome because I'm not sure it's perfect for the British climate. We do a lot of roof style things, and we do lots of mimics. So we've done, we wanted to tuba timbered building where we mimic the oven to look like the building. We did another one for a customer where they've got a specific stylization of the brick and block and features of the house. So we recreated the oven in exactly those features. So we do lots of work. We've done an oven for somebody who I probably better not name names actually, although he is a very famous individual, where he wanted it to look like it had been part of his house, an old house. He wanted it to look like it had always been there. So we built a brand new oven that looked like it had been there for 200 years.
So it sounds like you've got a lot of skills in that as well as kind of the pizza side of things.
Yeah.
Okay. And how long does a build sort of take? I suppose it depends how complicated it is.
Yeah, it very much varies on how much work we're doing. So I mean, like I say, we if all you want is a simple little rendered dome, we can probably knock that up in 2 or 3 days. We did a project for a lady last year in Bedford who wanted a covered area with side cupboards and things like that, and that took 3 weeks.
I suppose a lot of people think, oh, we could do that ourselves. Could they? Are there some things that are difficult?
I'll be completely honest and say, apart from the oven itself, probably most of the building work could be undertaken by any competent builder. Many of the ovens could potentially fit into that category. But experience has taught us that lots of people have a go and don't get it quite right. And then they have issues. And then we end up going out running rescue missions, or they don't have the best experience to start with. I mean, one guy I was involved with, he actually had 3 different companies go in to build an oven for him. Yeah. and he still wasn't happy with it. And
Mm,
that's really sad because he's paid three different people a lot of money, and
yeah.
none of them have successfully achieved what he was trying to achieve. If you're spending a lot of money on an outdoor space, you want it to be right first time. But
Mm,
we work alongside other people, and if it's well coordinated and well done, then there's no reason why different people can't do different aspects of the work.
mm. And is there any chance for people to come along and play with an oven a little bit and get to see it before they buy?
And we have a showroom in Preston, and we've got one or two domestic garden ovens very closely associated to the showroom. So we can, for example, I mean, you can come and have a go in my oven in my garden if you particularly want to be outside having a go. Or you can
Mm.
come and have a go in the showroom if you're not bothered about being outside, you just want to experience an oven.
So if somebody wants to think about, getting an oven this summer, when do they need to start thinking about that, really?
Well, I think the first thing they need to think about is, do they want something that's going to be instantly gratifying and maybe going to give them, in the case of our small oven, perhaps 5 to 10 years life cycle, or and that life cycle, bearing in mind that most people start off thinking they want to cook one pizza, but they end up wanting to cook the Sunday lunch or the Christmas dinner. So there's that aspect of growing out of the first thing you buy if you're not careful.
Mm,
So those are the sorts of things, if I'm talking to somebody on the phone, I try and take them on that journey to see where they're going, to what their aspirations are, what they're expecting to get out of it. So depending on, if you was to say to me now today, Andrew, can you come and build me an outdoor kitchen? I'd be saying to you, yes, probably about June time.
hmm.
If you said to me, look, I just want an oven, I've got people coming round on, well, we're on Friday now, but let's assume we were on Thursday. I've got people coming round on Saturday. I could have got you one out delivery on Friday or even Saturday morning that would cook one pizza, no problem.
Well, that's really hasty, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't think I'd be wanting to do it that quickly. I think I'd want to have a little play
be
first.
surprised. We do get it. I mean, I've had the phone call where I've got friends coming at the weekend. I need a pizza oven. So it has happened.
So what advice would you give to somebody if they want to have a proper oven, or should I say a pucker oven? Because I think that's what Jamie Oliver likes to say, isn't it? And I know that he's a big fan. So what's the best advice to someone if they're thinking about buying a pizza oven this year?
Well, as I said a few minutes ago, I think you need to go on that journey in your mind or with somebody else. What do I want to use for? How often do I think I'm going to use it? How long do I think I'm going to keep it? Um, you know, am I going to grow and experience other things? Uh, do I want it to be a feature in the garden? Do I want to be something to be I can put away in the shed in the winter? Um, there's just so many aspects. It's what can I say? If you were going to build a patio in the garden, you just wouldn't just run down to the builders merchants and throw a few flags on the ground. You'd choose the colour, you'd choose the shape, the size, what you wanted the
Mm,
shape of the patio to look like. There's all those things to think about. If all you want to do is say, well, I want to be able to cook a pizza on Saturday, then go along to the garden centre and buy something for 300 quid, or talk to us and buy our next day delivery baby oven. I think, in truth, the baby oven and if you want, for what I want of a better word, the throwaway £300 from the garden centre oven is a younger generation thing. It's kind of, I want to experience it, I want to try it. I may or may not enjoy it. I may or may not continue with it. So,
mm,
you know, I've actually said to customers before now, maybe you're not ready to spend the money and commit to a build or to a garden oven. Maybe you need to have that experience to decide whether it is for you.
yeah.
Um, Bearing in mind that, in effect, that money is going to be wasted and could be going towards this project. So that's also got to be a part of your thinking. Obviously, we have a system whereby if you buy a Fornino or the larger Fornino, you can trade it back in the future against something more expansive.
Hmm.
But yeah, everybody has their own mind and budget and what they want from it. It's about actually getting people to think about the right things, because we've been doing this 20 years and we've dealt with thousands of people, and we know the sorts of questions that people should be asking themselves. Whereas
Yeah.
we come across a lot of people that have heard about wood fired cooking, or they've seen it on the telly, They don't really truly understand it. It's kind of a bit of a, oh, I've got to have one of those because Jamie Oliver's got one kind of thing, without actually thinking it through and how it's going to affect them and their lives, and what they should be really thinking about from their point of view.
Mm. And if I have a baby oven, can I choose a colour?
Yes,
Suit my
yes.
decor?
Well, I mean, off the shelf, we can offer you cream, red, or black. But
Mm-hmm.
if you give us enough warning, it can be any Pantone colour you like.
Oh, right, okay. And
So,
design-wise, could you have your own design on it?
in theory, yeah. I mean, it's a canvas, so I mean,
Mm.
there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do anything. You could paint it as a blackboard and have it chalk it up every day, or you could graffiti it. You could, I mean, I think you once suggested that we should paint one like a Christmas pudding to take a photograph. So yeah,
That
I
sounds
mean,
like the sort of crazy thing I'd say, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's. I often say to people, it's a canvas. Even the
Mm.
big commercial ones, it's a canvas. It's something to either show off your garden or show off your restaurant. Change it. It doesn't have to stay the same color. Have one color this year and have a different color next year. You don't need to buy a new oven. Just paint it.
Mm. And just sort of thinking about, people who want to sell pizza as a living, because there's all these horse boxes and things like that around now, aren't there? Can they put that sort of oven inside a horse box?
Absolutely. I mean, the single biggest thing we come across with people that want to do that is they don't understand the impact of the weight of a wood-fired oven on their vehicle. So, for example, we've got one in at the moment where the gentleman's upgrading his oven from a competitor's oven that hasn't worked, and his vehicle can carry in excess of 2.5 tons. So he can have quite a large oven, and he
Mm.
can have a bespoke built oven. Most vehicles that people are using, like horse boxes and things like that, have a weight carrying limit of 1,200 kilos. So
Yeah.
you then take into account any refrigeration, any tables, any
Mm.
shelves, any stock, any equipment that you're going to use. That all contributes to that 1,200 kilos, and you can very, very quickly use that up. So then you try and stick a pizza oven in there that might be 7, 8, 900 kilos, and actually suddenly you find that you can't take Coke bottles of cans of Coke to sell, or have a
Mm.
fridge to keep your ingredients in because you're over the weight limit. And that's the biggest mistake people make. Now, obviously, our little baby ovens are designed for that purpose, so they're lightweight but still incredibly functional. We've replaced so many other ovens over the last few years because the biggest problem people have is that the floors go cold in these ovens. The Valeriani floor, our floor, doesn't do that. So guys are telling me that they consistently can get 100 pizzas an hour. I'm kind of like, no, that's not possible. But they assure me that they're getting 100 pizzas an hour without any interruptions. They've come to me because they've used something else cheaper to start with, and they're finding they should, from the size of the oven, be getting 100 pizzas an hour, but they're getting 20 or 30 because they've constantly have to reheat it, or they get one that's burnt and one that isn't burnt, and there's no consistency because the oven,
Mm.
you can put a fire in it, it will cook a pizza, but it's not designed to do it properly.
I suppose if you're trying to feed a festival queue or something like that, it's not a great
Exactly,
thing, is it, if
exactly,
you
no,
can't turn the
exactly,
product out? Mm.
no, exactly that.
Okay. Well, that's great, Andrew. Thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon. Can you tell us where can people find out more information about your products?
Obviously, the most important place is the website,
Hmm.
www.orchardovens.co.uk, or
Yeah.
if you want to look on the commercial mobile side, www.valeriani.co.uk, or you can call us 01772 250000.
That's
Very easy.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And yeah, I shall look forward to some aubergine parmigiana whenever you want to send some round.
I will put it in the post.
All right. Thanks
Okay.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Well, there we go. Lots to think about. Hopefully, if you really fancy cooking outdoors this year and are ready to go beyond the barbecue, this podcast will help you spend your money wisely and ask the right questions when buying a pizza oven or a pizza and much more oven. Whatever you go for, do have fun. And remember that life's much more fun when you're poodling around, even if you're just poodling around a pizza oven in your own back garden. Until next time, take care. I'll speak to you soon.